Hello everyone, my name is Martin and welcome to another great edition of MP Astro. Now, as you can remember from my last video, I super tuned this awesome 127 Mak, the Skywatcher Maksutov, and I've been testing it out after the super tune, and I would say I got some good results. I would say not so great, but I had some good results from the last video. And again, if you've not seen that video, please check it out from the top, especially if you own this particular type of telescope. It'd be a good video for you to watch if you really want to boost its performance. Now at the moment, there's a new Maksutov coming out from SUPERTUNED, and that also looks very promising indeed. And it's got some really good specs to that telescope. And again, I'm not going to review it because I've got a decent scope here that's up to the performance. I have got mixed views on the SUPERTUNED Maksutov, but it does look really good, and I would highly recommend, if anyone's interested in the Maksutov range of telescopes, is to have a look at those particular brands, because the SUPERTUNED is a very good one indeed. But I'm not going to shed too much light on that telescope. I'm sure there's loads of Astro channels that will be quickly reviewing that and publishing out a lot of video content. Sometimes, I do product reviews as well, but sometimes I like to do the DIY aspects, making your equipment perform better, finding new ways to help improve on your equipment, get as much out of this hobby. And end of the day, you do save a little bit more money because it gives you the incentive to keep hold of the telescopes. You see a lot of people will buy a telescope, get bored of it, get sick of it, and then they'll flog it, sell it on eBay, and what's the point? End of the day, these telescopes are really, if you bought a really good telescope, they'll last a lifetime, and you save a lot of money in the long run. Just because there's some glitches on there you don't particularly like, why not you just do it yourself? Improve on the telescope, bit of hands-on. Just you don't need a fountain of knowledge to know. All right, some of these telescopes are quite easy to strip down and help to improve. It just takes a bit of time and patience, and if you know what you're doing, you can achieve it really well. And to be honest with you, for me, super tuning these telescopes that I've got at the moment, it's a bit of a hobby. I do like to work on these telescopes, see how they work, how they function, and get the grips of understanding the equipment I've got. And to be honest with you, after seeing all this stuff that I've worked on, some of these telescopes that I've got are very good, high quality optics, and to be honest with you, they will last a long time if you look after them. So I'm going to test this telescope out. Hopefully the weather predicts that I've got some good clear spells, hopefully, fingers crossed, and we'll see how I get on. So at the moment, as you saw in the last video, I found out that I've got this CCDT 47 focal reducer, and I've been testing it out, and I noticed quite a few things about it. So I did get some reasonable images, but we're going to try it out again and find out how this really performs. So before we start, please hit the like button. Also, I don't know if you see it on your tab screen, there is a hype button. So if there's a hype button on your thing, please don't forget to hype this video. All that does, it just helps boost sending my video out a little bit more, trying to beat the logarithm on YouTube, and it just pushes out my video just a little bit more, just helps me out. As you can see, real Astro channels are struggling a bit trying to get some views. And again, if you do see the hype button, please hype this video. I really appreciate it if you did. Right, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new to this channel. Again, please subscribe to this video, and don't forget to share this video out. Again, this is a super tuned series of videos. Right, this can help someone else who will own this particular telescope and would like to further enhance it. So don't forget to share this video out, and don't forget to scroll up, click all, and obviously to hit the bell, and I'll also notify you with any new videos that I publish out very, very soon. And believe me, I've not stopped yet. I've still got plenty of video content and loads of projects that I've still got to wait through. Obviously the weather and the clouds, you know, it's just how it is. Sometimes it's quite frustrating, but this is a real Astro channel, and again, my video contents, it's not always guaranteed every month or so, so it just depends on the weather and depends on certain aspects. And so if you want to find out how this SUPERTUNED Maksutov 127 performs, please keep watching and let's do this. Well, everyone, we've got a clear night finally, and as always we're going to deliver the goods and show you how this CCD47 works. Now at the moment, as you can see behind at the background, it's not ideal imaging sessions when you've got the moon up, particularly if you want to image deep sky objects. And as we can see there, it's yeah, it's in your face. It's half moon at the moment, and so it's a bit of a nerve-wracking situation because I don't want to wash out the image on the images that I'm going to take. So as you can see, we've got the trusty Maksutov 127 super tuned, and we've got the CCD47 with the without the spacer. We're doing at the 71mm focal reduction, which will give me the ideal f8.3 focal ratio, and the whole idea is to try and eliminate the vignetting and get rid of some of the coma. So at the moment we are imaging the Crescent Nebula, which is NGC 6888 or 6088, and as you can see there, we're having to go down to 4 minutes exposure because I don't know what it is. It's me. It's obviously the moon is pretty bright, so I was hoping to get 5 minutes exposure time, but I'm really pushing it. So even though I've got a light pollution filter, the L Pro, to try and eliminate some of that moonshine, it is still pushing me luck there. So as we're going to see, we're going to take a closer look, and it's taken the shot. We've got like a few more minutes left. As you see, it's okay. We've got an image, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel that out. Also, cancel that last imaging session. So I'm just going to switch her off. We have got the image, so what we're going to do is look at the image we got. Okay, look at that. So we have got the crescent bang on, well, almost bang on, not perfect, but I would just want to dim down the ISO so you can see, and as you can see, this looks really promising. So we're just gonna zoom in so you can see. Oh wow, that, I think there's a bit of star trail. I think that's maybe guiding's not very good, but there's no, I can't see no vignetting around the side, which is really good. Notice it's a bit slow at f8.3. Just gonna zoom in so you can see a bit more. I think there's a bit of star trailing, but that's yeah, there's a bit of star trailing, which I think my guiding's not too great, but then I've got cloud and stuff like that that could interfere with the seeing conditions. But that's not a bad image. 4 minutes exposure time at ISO 800. There's no vignetting. I can't see any hold on, let me just get at that. Just bear with me. As you can see, obviously I'm not staging this, alright, this is all real life stuff. Okay, we're back to that image again. Just want to try and zoom in so you can see on the stars. So I think there's a little bit of star trailing there, a little bit there. I think because my guiding's not that great there, so I might actually up down the exposure time to 3 minutes, I think, to try and get those stars a little bit more pinpoint. But that's not a bad image, and I must admit I can't see no vignetting at all in that image, which is definitely saying something there. That really is impressive. So I can't see any vignetting at all in that field of view, which definitely it's worked on the ideal focal air gap there of 71mm. So f8.3 is a little bit slow, but we have got the Crescent Nebula at 4 minutes exposure time. It's just a real shame that my guiding is not up to much at all there. It's really quite disappointing. So it's either my guide scope systems are just not enough to satisfy the longer focal length, or it's just bad seeing conditions, because obviously the seeing conditions is not so great. So I think my guide scope's not really up to the longer focal length there. With the more reduction, it was easier. But as you can see there, I am guiding really well. It's just obviously just not sufficient enough for that focal length on my telescope. So at that f8.3, it's yeah, it's a bit of a shame with that. So the only way I could get around it is I go probably increase the ISO, or I'll just lower the exposure time to 3 minutes, and hopefully I get a better result. But so far, very promising. We've achieved the vignetting. There's no vignetting on there whatsoever. I couldn't see. The stars look a bit more corrected, although my guiding is a bit skew with. And I think this guide scope, being a mini guider, is great for short focal length telescopes, but when you're using longer focal length f8.3. I mean, obviously if it was a lot lower like f7.9 or below, it was absolutely fine. So it looks like I'm really pushing it with this guide scope system. It's obviously just not enough to be enough to guide that effectively. So obviously I'll probably need to use a bigger guide scope at 50mm with a longer focal length, or I could use the Syn guider and use a 70mm guide scope, and hopefully if I get better results on my guiding. And again, with this system here that I got here, I can fit my guide scope, the 70mm guide scope, with my Syn guider on there. Obviously it's going to add more weight, so it's not going to be a light sort of setup, but we'll see anyway. But we have got the Crescent Nebula, and we've achieved a lot of detail, and I could not detect any vignetting. It's a real shame about the guiding, but what we'll do is we'll carry on taking the shots, and like you see, I'm really impressed so far. So I'll think about what I'm going to do, because the moon is right up there and I don't want to push the exposure too much, because I'm going to whitewash my image. So I'll see what I can do and see what results I get so far. Well guys, as you can see, I've set up my artificial star. As you can see, the tripod and the artificial star at the far end of the kitchen. And as you can see, I got my Maksutov and I've got it lined up, and as you can see, yes, the collimation was quite a way out a bit. So it seems to me that this screw here needs tightening up. So push that one forward and then slacken that one off to actually move the eccentric rings to the center. So as you can see there, I'm quite a bit way off there, and obviously that's my collimation that's out. So it just shows you time after time you have to check this Maksutov now and again. And I must admit, it is annoying. It's a real shame that the image on that Crescent Nebula, that's the main reason why the stars were not very good. So it just shows you, even though you set up your eyepiece and all that, even though it looks collimated, but it's not mated properly with the camera sensor. So so I should have done this in the first place, is had it on the camera and did it this way. It would have been a lot easier, then I would have got this collimated properly. So as you can see there, it's a bit out. So I've just got to adjust these screws here and try and push it. I'll say push it to the left hand side to try and get this central. Now everyone, I need to address this issue. Now as you see, I was trying to collimate my Maksutov, and there's one thing that I've noticed, as whilst I was doing the adjustment screws, I couldn't move the actual mirror, and what was happening is that when I was tightening one screw and slacking the other, the adjustment that I tried to make wasn't moving the mirror at all. And I don't know what's happened, but it seems like the mirror got stuck. So it's actually the mirror cell that's got stuck, and no matter how much I was adjusting the screws, nothing was happening. So obviously I've been using my 3mm and 2mm bits to adjust it, so I've been using the correct tools. But as I was tightening on one screw on one side, the big screw popped off the actual base. This base came off. So obviously that's not great at all, and I thought I stripped out the threads, and it's not always a good thing to over tighten something and then it just popped off. It literally, this came off straight away, which tells me that this threaded piece It's actually two pieces, right? So there's no, this is not a solid piece. So the threaded part is where the actual mirror assembly, the actual mounting bracket, that's the threaded part that goes into the tube. So the big screws actually screw onto this mirror cell, this other separate piece that's inside that holds the mirror. So luckily I've tightened it up and I managed to get it back on. So I'm going to show you this trick, and it seemed to have worked straight away. So what I'll do is I will move the telescope in the vertical, right, so I'm going to show you this trick. So what I did was I slackened the big screws, right, so the big screws, you slacken off to about 2 to 3 full turns using the 3mm. So you slacken all 3 of them, and then obviously to slacken it, it's always lefty-loosey, and then lefty-loosey again, you slacken off the smaller screws all the way out with the 2mm bit. So in theory what you'll have is your base won't be as loose, alright, so you do it, you slacken them off, completely off, but don't take the bolts out, alright, just 2 or 3 turns for the big bolts, alright, don't take them completely off. The smaller screws, they're a push to, so you can wind them all the way out. They're going nowhere. But it's the big screws that hold the entire base and the mirror assembly inside. Alright? Make sure that you don't take off the focus knob itself. Alright, that's both of them. Then, with this, you then place the telescope, providing you put the dust cover to protect the meniscus lens, and you put it in upright position facing down onto a hard surface like so. As you can see, with these screws, they're not completely removed, you will hear a thud. Now don't let that concern you. Basically what's that's indicating is the actual mirror actually sags down on the jaw tube. There is also, you've got the ring, the retainer ring on the focus jaw tube. That will fall down in line and it will hit against that retainer. So do not worry that if your primary mirror falls down. It will not fall down. It will basically stop at that retainer ring. So basically what you're doing is you're using gravity to place the mirror squarely onto the optical train, and with that you're basically realigning the actual primary mirror, so it's now dead straight. With that, make sure that you do not remove that focus wheel. Alright, if you remove that focus wheel, the mirror will come crashing down onto the meniscus lens, and that's what you don't want. So providing your screws are slackened but not taken off completely. It's only the smaller screws that are wound all the way up, because they're a push-to type. But these big screws, they pull the mirror cell in. So what you do is, once you hear that thud, and it is a big thud, that will show you that the mirror has moved down onto the retaining ring. It's not going to go anywhere, so you don't need to worry. And then what you do is, with these smaller screws wounded all the way out, you then tighten the big screws all the way in until you can't get them any tighter. Obviously don't over tighten that you strip the threads, but you tighten each one independently, bit by bit, until you can no longer tighten them. So you basically tighten them up and it should be good to go. Once these are tight, you then use the 2-bit, alright, 2-bit, obviously 2mm hex bit, to tighten up the smaller screws. And again, you go independently. With those, you just tighten up until you feel that the screws hit the primary mirror or the primary mirror cell at the back. These are just nipped up. You don't over tighten these. You just basically bit by bit, squarely, like so, and you just nip them up until you feel the screws go into the base. So you do that like that, and hopefully with that, doing that method, it will help square off that primary mirror. Alright, so basically you don't get much mirror slop now, and I think that's what's happened here, is that because the mirror is at an angle, the screws were unable to push the mirror because the mirror was on a squint. So no matter how much you over tighten or tighten up these screws, the collimation screws, it was doing nothing. So what we've done here is we've made sure that the primary mirror is squared onto the retainer, and it's now flush along that draw tube, or in the focus draw tube. So with that, we're going to check it out, because I've already done the adjustments. It is quite simple, but we're going to check it out again and see what we get, because I think that's what's happened here. The mirror cell is not a great design, and that's the reason why I think Zivboni, their Maksutov, they've decided to use their secondary mirror as a collimating mirror, and the primary mirror is fixed. So that's probably the reason why the Zivboni is probably a better design, because you only have to adjust it on the secondary mirror and not the primary mirror. With the Skywatcher, it's the primary mirror that moves back and forth, alright, and it's these screws here. Don't get me wrong, once your telescope is collimated, it remains collimated for quite some time. So what we're doing here is we're allowing gravity to take over to make sure that the mirror sits onto that retaining ring on the focus tube squarely, and it should help us collimate the primary mirror better. So the screws will be able to tilt the mirror back and forth better. So it's a top tip to use, and I noticed this, like, as soon as I tightened one of these screws and all that, and there was no effect, there was nothing. There was actually the actual mirror was not moving at all, and I knew something that was wrong. So then, after a good hour or so trying to get this right, as you can see on my Maksutov, I had to take off the electronic focuser because of the collimation screws were hidden. That's the trouble about my electronics focuser design, is collimation screws are not easily done, so you have to take off the electric focuser to do this. Now, as you can see, it took a bit of a time to get it right, and as you can see there, I think it's a lot better than it was, but it's still not perfect. But as you can see there, the eccentric rings are a lot more focused now than lopsided to one side. So if I just go back and forth, you can see that the donut is a lot more refined. You can also see a bit of the middle. Yeah, you can see the middle part, which means it's really a spot on. Well, I can say it's roughly, but you can just see the middle part and bang on the middle. But the donut is a lot more prominent now, and if we go out of focus even more, you'll start to see the rings. So that's the best I can do. It's a lot better than what it was. So collimation was definitely the issue there, which is quite irritating to say the least. But we've now got it bang on now, and hopefully we should get some good results. But so far that's a lot better than what it was, because don't forget it was lopsided to one side. So it's not easy. The last video, which is a really old one, you know, I do show it in detail. Please check that video out. But you can get it back to what it was, and that is so much better than what it was when I was imaging the Crescent Nebula. It's just a shame. It's just a shame that the image was slightly out of collimation. So maybe this will correct the coma a lot more. But have you noticed I've been using I've been using the 30mm spacer, which seems to work out much better than what it was initially. As you can see here, I've took the spacer off. There's the spacer off, and as you can see there, it fits nice and flush on there. This is with the 71 air gap. Now, as you can see there, I've noticed that when you do this, the collimation is slightly off a bit more. So even though the eyepiece holder and all that, even though it seems to be, you know, a lot more sturdy with taking that spacer off, I've noticed here I'm slightly off. So doing the 71mm spacing makes the coma, it's slightly at adjustment. So I've gone back to the spacer, the 30mm spacer, and wow, see what I mean? I'm just going to show you now that using that correct spacing, the ideal 85mm, it just shows you. Now look at this, and I've not adjusted it. I've not adjusted any collimation screws, and that's what I mean. So look at that. I've got it bang on the collimation there. You can see the central dot in the middle. Now, if I just move the focuser in and out, I mean, look at that, it's so much better. That's actually so much better. So yeah, it just shows you. Going in and out, in and out. Wow, this is what I mean. So yeah, for some reason it works a lot better with that spacer. And the rings are literally much better. Yeah, that's a lot better collimation that now. So now we've collimated the telescope. We're just going to check it, see how it's collimated. And as you can see, we're looking at the church again, and a lot better now. The image quality is a lot more sharper now. I'm really happy with the results so far. So my key area was definitely collimation that actually affected the view, obviously imaging the Crescent Nebula. So as you see, I've got a much sharper image there. We revert back to the spacing now, the 30mm spacing, so we're at the 85mm spacing. Reasons for that is it's just that it does not show coma as much. If you use the 71mm spacing, you can really see the coma. You know, so your collimation's got to be spot on when using this focal reducer. And the CCD 47, it is a good focus. It is a good field flattener and focal reducer for the price. But once you get the collimation just right, I will have a bit of vignette in using the f 7.9 ratio. which is not too bad. You can just see it on the edges. But I noticed when I use it with just the 71mm spacing, I did not get the vignetting. So it does work. I just can't wait to try this telescope now. Well, this is it, everyone. Time has come. We're testing out the super-tuned 127 Mak to its paces again. And like I had to sort out the collimation, I'm just doing the star alignment first. So I'm not actually imaging just yet because it's still pretty light. What we've got here is we've got an out-focus star on Vega. Now if you take a closer look, you might not be able to see Vega, but she's up there anyway. Yeah, Vega's way up there, so the camera's not picking it up. But as you can see here, we're focused on, well, we're out of focus with Vega, and as you can see, we've out of focused it to check the actual donut, and as you can see, we have now got it properly collimated, which is really good news. Again, I am using the 30mm spacer because obviously I want to use the 7.9 focal ratio, and that is so much better. Alright, so much better. So ideal opportunity is once you've got it, check the collimation. If it's slightly out, you'll have to adjust it on at the back. I have taken out the focus wheel off, the focuser, electronic focuser, so we're going to use manual focus. So what we do when we do a star alignment, use a bright star on the Mak, get yourself one of these. Now this is a Standoff mask. Now this is quite an old one, but this one's designed for the 127 Mak, okay? And you just fit this over the objective lens like so. Right, doesn't need to be perfect. As you can see, if we take a close look, we are going to adjust that focus. So what we do is we put it on the maximum setting. So you press the 10 times magnification on the DSLR on the Canon 600D, and then you focus that star. Okay, and you keep focusing it until all the spikes, as you can see, we'll line up all the spikes. Once you get all lined up like that, that is now focused properly. Alright, that is that easy. It took 2 seconds. So what you're trying to achieve is make sure that the middle spike is bang on in the middle, like so. Alright, that is you properly focused. That is now the Maksutov focus on the star. And then what you do, remember to take off the Standoff mask, like so. We then go back to the actual star itself, and also using 10 times focus, so we put it back to the minimum, and your star should be pinpoint and sharp, okay, ultra sharp. That is now your Maksutov fully focused to the star. I've had no dramas using this method, absolutely no dramas. It really is so easy, right? Very easy to use, right? And you don't need to use precise software or anything like that. I've always used this focus mask. You know, it's 100% really good, cheap, and very effective. And I've not really had any issues using that process. It really is top notch. So get yourself a focus mask for your Maksutov, because again, if you want to achieve pinpoint and well focused stars, this is the baby to use. All right, without a doubt. All right, and as you can see there, we're now properly focused, and then we'll begin our star alignment. So obviously when we're going to start our star alignment, I'm going to use just 2 alignment stars. I'm not going to go too balmy. I'm going to use Vega and then align up to Dubhe, and that's it. That's all you need to do. All right, so I'll begin my star alignment and we'll see how we get on. Well, this is it. I've just done my star alignment and we are imaging the Bubble Nebula, which is, I don't know exactly, NGC 7635 it is. So the Bubble Nebula is quite an interesting target. This is an ideal sort of, it is tiny, but it should be really good for the Maksutov. Now at the moment I'm guiding perfectly, no hassles, and it's running like a dream, and that's what you want. So far I'm looking really forward to this, because I'm doing ISO 800 at 5 minutes exposure time. Keep it to 5 minutes, all right? Don't want to do too much. We have got a bit of a moon, but the moon is not as bad. So we're going to take a closer look, and as we can see, just move the cables out the way. We're at 420, and yeah, it's a slow process, you know, getting this right. Hopefully I should get the image. I've not even sighted it, so I don't know if I'm in the frame or what, but I should be able to easily fit this through the sensor on the Canon 600D. So here we go. So we're taking a shot. Okay, right, we have got it. Let me just cancel that out. Just switch her off. So we have got it. I'm just going to check the last image. Okay, right, we have got it, but unfortunately I'm not quite in the sensor very well. It's obviously you can see a bit of a lens flare, because obviously I'm using the I'm using my bloody flash, so it's obviously got a bit of lens flare from that. Well, as you can see, we take a closer look. Yes, we're there. You can just see it there, but we're not in the center of the frame. But looking at that image, the stars are a lot more refined. That collimation has performed really well. Yeah, there's a bubble and nebula. So we're there. There's the bubble and nebula. It's a real shame, but my stars are really good. I must admit that's much better. You know, looking at those stars, oh man, that is so much better. That collimation is sorted out now. Thank God for that. So I'm using a faster ratio this time, and it's just a real shame I'm not in the centre, but that's not to worry, I'll get that sorted out. But other than that, that's much better. Yes, I've got a bit of a reflection there on the side, but that's probably because of me my camera flash, so it's obviously emitting a little bit of stray light. So we'll sort that out, get it into the center of the frame, and then we'll start again. But so far, collimation massively improved your images. Just shows you, take your time when you're collimating your Maksutov. Once you get it right and you align it to that one of the stars, you get collimation with the stars, you're gonna get really good images. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get out of that, and then I'm just going to recenter that, and then start the guiding again, and then start again. That's the way it is. Okay, so we're done. Hopefully I'm central with the target on the bubble nebula, and I really can't wait for this. Just dim down. So now we're going extreme now. Not instead of 5 minutes. Yes, I was just getting the actual nebula itself, but I really want the whole structure. So I'm going to pump it up to 10 minutes exposure time, and hopefully I've got it in the center of the camera sensor, which is really what I want. So I'm really happy I've got the image. My stars are much sharper, so the Maksutov is much more collimated now. It's much better now. Again, point to take out, I'm still not getting any vignetting around the edges. So like we did by taking off that spacer, testing it out, yes, I didn't get no vignetting at all, but it just means I'm going to have a slower telescope. 7.9 is relatively slow anyway, but as you can see there, it's, yeah, you really need to up the ISO. I mean, 800 is ideal for the Canon 600D, and then increase the exposure time. So 10 minutes is pushing it, because I have got a bit of a moon, so my skies aren't totally dark. I do have surrounding light pollution from someone's light, but hopefully when they all go to bed that will clear up. I am using an L Pro filter to minimise some of the light pollution, particularly from this camera. We'll see what we get. So far it's looking promising. My guiding's good. Hopefully 10 minutes is gonna hack this. If I get 10 minutes exposure time, we're doing extremely well. So here we go. 10 minutes is almost done. Wow. Wait, mate, check this out. Right, let me just cancel that. We've got the bubble nebula. I'm just going to flick through that image. Yes! Mate, look at this. Right, what I'll do is I'll just minimise it so you can see. Look at that. Look at that. That is awesome. Let me zoom in. Wow, look at that. All the stars, nice and crisp. We zoom in. I can't argue with that. Look at that. My stars, we've got the bubble nebula. You can just see that three-dimensional shape there. And the stars are perfect. Oh man, that is so much better. I say hello everyone. See what I mean? When I go through all these videos, I do spend a lot of time trying to get things right to produce some really good video content for you guys and girls. Real evidence is what you want to see, and we've just achieved 10 minutes exposure time with a Maksutov f7.9 ratio. What more can you ask for? Really, guys and everyone? It's just, this is absolutely amazing. I've actually achieved 10 minutes exposure time through this setup. Really is absolutely amazing. So yeah, despite not so great with this, obviously the surrounding light pollution, and we've got a bit of a moon, but I can't grumble with that, guys and girls and everyone. That is absolutely amazing, really is. So yeah, what can I say? Fantastic. Well, guys and girls and everyone, what do you reckon? Absolutely fantastic results. I'm absolutely thrilled to bits now that I've got my telescope working, performing as it should, and managed to sort out the collimation on this Maksutov. So as you saw, when I tested it out with the spacing on the CCD 47, the spacer does actually, if you increase that air gap, in theory you're speeding up the telescope to a certain degree. And obviously using the 71mm spacing, which is the 70mm, which is the minimum air gap that's needed, will slow down this telescope. But I've noticed, as you saw, as I progressed through the video, you noticed that with that air gap, it's very crucial. And I noticed that if you increase that, if you de-increase that to the minimum, you do get introduced a little bit of coma around the edges. Even though this telescope is fully collimated, you're still going to get a little bit of coma. So that's why I changed back to that spacing and kept it to the ideal 85mm that stated on their recommendations on Telescope Services website. And again, the coma is still there, as you can see in that image. You can just see around the edges there is a little bit of coma. So it does introduce, it's either coma or it's slight curvature. So I reckon that even though the focal reducer is more suited for the Maksutov, you're still going to get a hint of curvature around the edges. So I don't know if it's coma or curvature. As you see in those images, you decide what you think that is. But I'm looking at the probably is curvature more than likely. Obviously, the initial first steps when I tested it out, I did have coma, but this time it's just slight curvature. But again, it's just one of those things when you use field flatteners and focal reducers, you're going to get some element of curvature or some distortion. You're not going to get an ideal, perfect optical image. All right, there's always imperfections. So as you can see, I'm actually really impressed that I'm guiding 10 minutes exposure time with this setup, and it just shows you that it really does help when your guiding is good, right? If you've got good guiding, you can guide slower telescopes. Any camera setup I've got here is really impressive. It does actually guide the Maksutov, not a problem. And the focal ratio of 7.9, all right, it's still pretty slow. It's not fast. And as you see, 10 minutes exposure, you do get a reasonable image. So it just depends. Like obviously in my last imaging session, I did have a crescent moon, so the skies weren't perfectly dark. And as you can see, you could easily whitewash an image if you're not careful. Luckily with slow telescopes you don't really have that problem as such, because it doesn't suck in as much light even though you've got the reducer on there. So yes, it does take longer to expose images, and I would recommend, if you want to get a decent deep sky object, ideally you should be looking at 5 minutes plus on this telescope. It's just the way it is. It is a slow telescope, but you can still image, and the images that you saw with the bubble nebula, that image is so much better now, and it just shows you that it is possible. 5 minutes exposure or more is probably better. Particular, I mean, that's a real challenge. The bubble nebula is not an easy target to view, all right, and it's not an easy target to image because it's so faint. So yeah, it's easily within grasp with a lot of faster telescopes because you can capture it really quickly. But for this is a real challenge for a Maksutov, and particularly with this, with a slower focal ratio, it is a huge challenge. But providing your mount is polar aligned and you get your star alignment perfect, it is possible, and I've shown that you can achieve 10 minutes exposure time, not a problem. You could even try it even longer, I suppose. With that guiding I had, I could actually pushed it to 15 minutes, probably 20 minutes, but then you do run the risk of whitewashing the image, especially if the moon is up or you've got slight surrounding light pollution. You can whitewash an image straight away. So you got to be careful when you set your exposure time and your ISO settings. So your camera settings is also crucial. So you got to have a bit of a balance. And even though I'm using the L Pro light pollution filter, which helps darken the sky a bit, but again, 10 minutes exposure, I got the bubble nebula, fantastic results. And the collimation is spot on. And again, that's the thing with Maksutovs, is once the collimation is sorted out, it lasts quite a long time. Alright, they will shift, alright, from time to time. So mirrors do misalign. So you, like I say, with a Maksutov, you probably need to adjust it probably 2 to 3 years. If you bang the tube, or you accidentally drop the tube or something like that by mistake, you can throw off the collimation. So your collimation will come loose now and again. Again, with obviously we're moving the telescope around and all that, but Maksutovs tend to retain the collimation very, very well. Alright, and sometimes I've not adjusted the Maksutov for quite some years. As long as you're careful with the telescope, it's completely fine. It's not like a Newtonian. every time you move a Newtonian to one location to the next, I can guarantee you have to laser collimate it or use a Cheshire eyepiece collimation every time to adjust the mirrors. They just shift. With their setup, the Maksutov tends to be a lot more stable. So as long as you're safe with the tube, you don't knock it about several times, you know, you've been very careful, the collimation will probably hold quite a long time. So, and again, I have done a video on the collimation of the Maksutov. It is very tricky because the mirror cell at the back consists of the push and pull sort of methods, where there's tiny screws that they push the mirror to one side, and then you've got the bigger screws that pull the mirror. So it's a very weird combination, and you have 6 of those to worry about. But again, that tip that I mentioned about tipping the telescope, because what I did have problems trying to collimate the Maksutov, and what I did, again, I had to tip it upside down so the primary mirror is facing down, and then I slackened the bolts. Sounds very risky at the first, but remember, you've got that retainer ring that holds that focus jaw tube, alright, and the focus knob. Alright, so when the mirror does sag down, it actually squares it down flat. So you're using the gravity to, when it flops down, you then tighten up the screws. So what I mentioned before, tighten up the big screws first. Obviously slacken all the screws first, and then tighten the big ones first down, so they're touching, so it pulls the mirror in, and then screw the smaller screws down all the way down till it stops. Okay, don't over tighten too much, and usually and weirdly it actually squared the mirror. Now again, it's not 100% guaranteed it's going to work, but tilting it down so the primary mirror is facing down, using that gravity, it sagged it down, because that's a problem with the Maksutov. They do have problems with mirror tilt. So because where the primary mirror is held with the draw tube, alright, there will be a little bit of free play, and that's what, you know, sometimes you notice that your focus might shift or something like that, because that's a problem with the Maksutov. It's because that primary mirror is held in with that draw tube, it's not fixed, so it's held in by that retainer. So all you're doing is using the gravity to push it down so it sits flush, and then all you're doing is then tighten up those screws, and hopefully that squares up the primary mirror. Weirdly enough, when I came to do it again, I could collimate the Maksutov really well, and it worked. Alright, I did a few minor adjustments, but it actually worked, because what happens, it wasn't adjusting some of those screws for some reason. It looked like the mirror cell was stuck in one place, and no matter how tight I was trying to tighten up those screws, I was at the point where I was going to strip out the threads, and that's no good. You don't want to do that. So by using that method, using that gravity, I noticed that it does actually help square down that mirror, and then I could do the adjustments really well. So that's a top tip to remember. Again, it's a simple thing, and again, it might not work out for you. It's just the way it is. I think that Skywatchers should revert to what Sibony are doing with their telescope, is have a collimating secondary mirror, because that does look a much better design, and the primary mirror is fixed, so you'll have no worry of that mirror shift, alright, that you get with certain Maksutovs. Now on the Maksutov 180, the mirror flop is not actually bad at all. In fact, I can't even tell any mirror flop with my Maksutov 180, but it seems more problematic with this sort of telescope, the 127. I don't know what it is for the 150 or the smaller Maksutovs, but I know this suffers with a bit of mirror flop, and that's why sometimes your focus might shift at a certain angle. Alright, it's the way it is. But that method I've just done now, and being able to image for almost 6 hours on the Bubble Nebula, I didn't have any mirror shift. So that method that I just done helped sorted it out. Now, after using that CCD47, would I recommend it? Yes, I would. Alright, it really is a fantastic, it really is a fantastic focal reducer for the money. Yes, it's a bit on the expensive side, but it seems to work out better for that telescope. Yes, it's not going to be as fast. Alright, 7.9, you might increase the air gap a bit more to try and lower it down to 7.6, but then you might get some weird artifacts when you're increasing that air gap between the camera and the reducer. But so far, I still had a tiny bit of vignette around the sides. And using that 71mm spacing, I could not detect any vignetting around the sides. Even though it slowed down the telescope down to 8.3, 8.4, it's still, I could not see no vignetting. But again, it sort of increased some of the curvature a little bit more around the edges. But it just didn't look right, and as you saw with my Crescent Nebula, it just seems a bit off. Alright, so that's why I went straight back to the 30mm spacing and added also down to, obviously up to the 85mm, and that worked out much better in the long run. Again, I found that with the Crescent Nebula, it's a real shame that I still had collimation issues, so I had to revert to using the artificial star and then realign it again. I did use All-Cal collimator. If you've not seen that video, please check it out from the top. I did do the All-Cal. It works, but it's not 100%. Right? You will get still misalignment, and it is okay. I won't say it's spot on accurate, but it does get you there. But what I found out is that you just still can't beat an artificial star, or use the best method is, if you want to waste your precious imaging time, is like I did on that other night before I started on the Bubble Nebula. It was to just double check the final collimation on Vega and out focus it to show you the ringlets of the donut shape. If your ringlets are nice and parallel like you saw, you know that your collimation's out. Your collimation is perfect, and as you saw there, I managed to sort out the collimation issues once and for all. And yes, you did see a massive improvement on the Bubble Nebula. The stars were sharp, not much coma I could see, and yes, you do get a hint of curvature around the edges, but again, it's just one of those things, right? The Maksutov is not a perfect telescope for astro imaging, but to be honest with you, after testing it around, the SUPERTUNED has worked a great deal, and it's now up to the stage where I've done as much as I can on this telescope. So finally, I've got my Maksutov performing as it should, and I would highly recommend getting the CCD47. It really is a good focal reducer for the money. Yes, it is expensive, but I highly recommend using that. It really is a good focal reducer for the money, and it really is perfect for the Maksutov. And again, this reducer will also work with other Maksutovs as well, alright, regarding what brand you have: Celestron, Skywatcher, Sibony. You know, a lot of the Maksutovs you can get available, it will work with those telescopes. I would say the Maksutov 180, the Celestron or the Antares screw-on, the f6.3 reducer, that is still good with that telescope, and that's much cheaper. But obviously the vignetting is not very prominent as such with the 180. However, I would use the CCD47, because that seems to be a much better reducer. Not quite as fast at reducing compared to the Celestron f6.3, but it comes pretty close. Yes, the reduction is not going to be as great, but to be honest with you, the image quality from the CCD47 or the 67 is so much better. And as you saw from my last imaging sessions, yes, the collimation is now sorted out now. I did get much better resolving images. much better than it was, and I would highly recommend. I would recommend that product from Telescope Service, the CCD47. I would give this 4 stars. All right, and the reason why I give it 4 stars is that because the price is very expensive for what it is. It could be just a tad, a little bit cheaper. And the other thing is, the reduction is not so great, right? It only mildly reduces your telescope focal ratio a little bit. I would say it's, you know, the Celestial is much better at reducing, but at least there's one thing: your images are a lot better, much sharper, more contrast. It's a much better reducer, even though the reduction is not so great, and that's why I give it 4 stars. And the other thing is, the price of this thing is quite expensive for what it is. But don't get me wrong, everyone, this reducer will work for many other telescopes like refractors, Ritchie-Crichton telescopes. So once you get this optical device, it will work with other telescopes. So your refractors and your Maksutovs and your Ritchie-Crichton telescopes, they will work with that reducer. Alright, so apart from that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to hit a like button. Also, don't forget to hype this video if the tab is available for you. And don't forget to subscribe onto my video. And share this video out. And don't forget to hit the bell if you want to be notified for any new videos that I publish out very, very soon. So to that on, thanks for watching, and I wish you all clear skies.